Hello, everyone. Welcome to Community CPA's 3 p.m. webinar. Today is Thursday, so it is our special day where we have our guest coming to join us to share and support small businesses. And today we have Jayne Armstrong. She is the Iowa District Director for the SBA and has been in the SBA for quite some years now, starting out in Virginia, the West Virginia District Office. But she's now working with the Iowa small businesses, and you might have seen her around, especially during the COVID times. She was visiting a lot of small businesses to see how they could support with their various SBA programs. And she has been on before, of course, to share the information with you all. So Jayne, thank you for coming back on with us again.
Absolutely.
I know this is a very important topic because people now are wondering what's left, what's out there, right? So yeah, I will turn it over to you and I'll share a screen. Just let me know when you want me to progress it, okay?
Okay, great. I'm just turning off my other cell phone was going off. I apologize to everybody. Catherine was telling me that my SBA logo backdrop is inverted and you're seeing it backwards, and I apologize. I don't know what's going on, but I'll get that corrected for the next time I do a presentation. But for now, just know that that's not really our logo the way it looks. So I just wanted thank you again to Community CPAs for your partnership with the SBA and all of your work, Catherine and Yang and everybody on your team with small businesses. And you're truly great champions of small businesses, and we greatly appreciate it at the SBA and our partnership. Before we get into this, is a short presentation, but I want to give you some updates. As you know, we've gone through different reiterations of different economic recovery programs since March of 2020 with the COVID pandemic, and we have put over almost $11 billion on the street for Iowa's small businesses and nonprofits through we've done 170 almost 174,000 PPP loans for over $8 billion, and then we've money through the economic injury disaster loan. We've had the targeted or the original advance grant with that, the targeted EIDL advance, the supplemental advance. And then we had for a short period the Restaurant Revitalization Fund program, and I'll talk about that too, as well as the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant program. And one that we haven't really talked about that we've also, I don't know exactly how much money has been put out there, but probably several $1 billion that we have done where we made up to 6 months of payments on existing and new SBA loans for borrowers. So we've been very, very busy, our entire team at the SBA, and we're in the final stages of the recovery program. What I want to go over today is what is our remaining program, the COVID EIDL, which stands for Economic Injury Disaster Loans. And that program is actually a standing program that SBA has. It's a loan program. It's not a grant. We're through all the grant programs that we have for our disaster division. So anytime there is a natural disaster, a hurricane, a tornado, the wildfires, SBA is the nation's rebuilding, or the financial arm that rebuilds, and we come in and help homeowners, renters, nonprofits, and small businesses through the recovery process. So that program is an existing program, the EIDL program, but for the purposes of the pandemic, we're calling it COVID EIDL. And this program runs through December 31st. There's still some funding left in it, but it runs through December 31st or until the money runs out. And so we're trying to get out, especially to underserved markets and marginalized communities that may not have had as much access to some of the funding programs. Maybe if they were self-employed, in the original rules on how Schedule C filers were very limited in what they could access under the PPP, until the new administration came in and they changed the rules and increased that amount to gross revenues. But also too, we had a phenomenal program called the Restaurant Revitalization Fund program that had some initial funding with it. And we had a 21-day targeted priority processing period for businesses that were owned by veterans, women, and socially and economically disadvantaged businesses, and lower income or lower revenues of 50,000 or less. What happened is we were challenged in court with that program. We got about 870 of those loans through in Iowa before the courts ordered SBA to shut down that program. So there were a lot of restaurants that were really counting on that in particular. And so this is another option, even though that was a grant program and we don't have any more grant programs left. Outside it, and I'll talk about targeted EIDL advance in the supplemental as well. But the EIDL program is a loan program, but it has very favorable terms. And so we're going to go through those updates today. And they did, because Congress has not reauthorized additional funding for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund program. We were also waiting on additional funding being added because it ran out of funding as well. So that program, it looks like it's not coming back. And so we're looking for ways that we can still help restaurants as well as businesses that may not have applied for anything yet. And so you might be new to EIDL, new to these Recovery Act programs, or maybe you're looking for some additional funds. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So if you want to go ahead to the next slide, we're just going to go over some updates with this. And I'm going to get on my reading glasses, and I apologize on that, but I'm an older SBA district director. So, so like I said, this is not a grant, it's a loan program, but it has very generous terms. If you are a small business owner, it's a 3.75% interest rate, 2.75% for nonprofits, and there's 30-year repayment terms on it, and the loans are deferred for 2 years. So your first payment would not be due for 2 years. We're also looking at, it's relatively, because you have the 30 years, relatively smaller loan payments versus if you went into a bank and got a loan that might be just for a couple of years. We also have changed, made it much more flexible with the use of the proceeds, and we'll be talking about that. You can now pay business debt with it, like including SBA, other SBA loans or other business loans as well. And it's very accessible. It's available through our website, and we'll talk about that as well. So next slide. Thanks, Catherine, for helping me to advance. So some of the policy changes. I know we were kind of back and forth, but the nature of this pandemic really took everybody by surprise, and we had to pivot just like the small business community did. Originally, our goal was to have loan sizes up to $2 million. We had to revert that back to 150,000 for this program because of the sheer demand that we were getting nationwide. So that had been increased to 500,000, and now we're getting back to a $2 million. So it is a higher loan maximum that you can apply for. And now you can also use the funds to be applied for payment and repayment of commercial debt and regularly scheduled federal debt. So it could be SBA loans, or maybe you have another loan, or maybe your PPP loan was not forgiven, along those lines, or you have a SBA microloan or any other type of loan, you can now use it. You have the flexibility to use this money to pay off those payments or make those payments. It's also out. Everything's going to be automatically converted over to 24-month deferment. It was down to 18 months for the last year, the changes, but it is back to a 24-month deferment on the first payment. We also, I don't know if this will apply to any of the businesses on here, but we have affiliation limitations on the size of a business and access to normal SBA loans. And so we've had the different programs through the economic recovery that looked at affiliations in different ways. And so they've simplified that definition. And now you can control, and we look at any affiliation as a business that you have control 50% or more ownership of. We'll get into, we have a chart here too showing some of the North American Industrial Classification System is the industry codes that industry and the government and everybody uses that indicates what business sector you're in. And you can't have any more than 500 employees. I mean, we're just not seeing that across the board, except in extreme circumstances. That's not really going to apply. But also, too, you can't have no more than 20 business operations or 20 locations. And we kind of match this up to the definition that was under the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. So if somebody owns 15 locations of a dry cleaner and 5 of a fast food place, you can't have, you're limited under that 20, or you can't be over 20 on the different businesses that you have to be eligible. And then also we have a maximum when you're looking at corporate groups and how they're structured with the ownership, with the affiliations, up to $10 million aggregate, or maximum aggregate on that. But it's not going to apply to the businesses that we're talking to today. So go ahead to the next one. So again, interest rate 3.75%, 2.75% for nonprofits, 30-year repayment, 24-month deferment. And then there are some requirements on the credit score. And so depending on the size of the loan, if you're under 25,000, the minimum credit score is 570, no collateral and no personal guarantee. By personal guarantee on SBA lending, we're required that anybody with 20% or more ownership of the business personally guarantees the loan. It's kind of standard on a lot of business loans. Under 25,000 for the EIDL program, you don't need that. But if you get higher than 25,000, there is going to be some collateral required, and personal guarantee if it's over 200,000. Credit score stays the same. And then when you get into the bigger loans, 500,000 to 2 million, the credit score minimum goes up to 625. And they do look for business real estate. And if the business does not have any real estate, that doesn't mean it's not eligible. It will still be considered. I'm going to get into questions at the end if trying to, so normal, you can use it across the board, normal operating expenses, payroll, rent, inventory, all your normal business operations. And now you can use it for not only for commercial debt payment, but also now prepayments ahead and your federal debt that we had talked about with SBA loans. And then, so it's working capital use of proceeds. So again, affiliation rules, I'm not going to really look at this because most of the businesses that we're dealing with, if anybody's large enough, you have a lot of different affiliates or different locations, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, and I'll make sure that my email address is in there. But let's go ahead to the next slide. So these are the industry codes as an example. Again, looking at locations and the affiliations, but those are a lot of the standard industry codes that we're seeing. Okay, next slide. So timeframes. So that gets into, was it Chad had a question about the tax returns and everything. So this gets into, let's talk about this first. Because we have different aspects of this program. If you're a totally new applicant, you have not applied for anything under COVID before, you do not have a COVID loan, then it's very simple. I mean, you just need to go in, you need to set yourself up on the portal, on the website, and we'll have that website or the address there at the end too, that you can go to, and it really walks you through. There's frequently asked questions. It really gives all the very specific guidelines for the program, and answers a lot of your questions. There's intake form there, and also you need to set yourself up in the portal. So if you have, you can apply for the first two pass. I mean, right now you can apply across the board. There were some things up until August 8th, but since we're past August 8th, this really looks at if you're a new applicant, and then also if you already have an EIDL loan and you want to increase the amount and be reconsidered for a higher amount, you can now go into and apply up to that $2 million amount or whatever, and looking at the eligibility requirements. You don't apply for, if you already have an existing EIDL loan, you don't apply for a new loan. You go in, there's a separate link there to apply for modification to ask for an increase. So make sure you do not go in and apply for a new loan. That just is going to complicate matters, and you don't want to do that with the volume that we're seeing. Okay, so the next slide. So, time frame. We are really just beyond swamped at the SBA. The disaster division that handles a lot of this, or that is processing a lot of this, they are also processing. We have a lot of active disasters right now with the hurricanes and the wildfires and everything. So, and we're just a small agency. But I need to explain this a little bit too, behind the scenes, what's been going on. And there's been a lot of delays with different things, or asking for additional information. If somebody had an original EIDL loan, at the time we streamlined a lot of the normal requirements because of the situation, the economic crisis, and we were trying to get the money out as quick as we could into the hands of small businesses. And so they dropped the requirement for the tax returns and different things like that. We are now under direction from the Inspector General, the Office of Management and Budget, and all the oversight agencies like Government Accounting Office, that we have to go back and ask for tax returns. And in some cases, some tax returns aren't matching up with what people said in the original application. And so they might go back and ask for some, or the revenues aren't matching up with what they're asking. So they need some additional documentation. This is all just being stewards of federal tax dollars, of our tax dollars, just really trying to prevent waste, fraud, and abuse, and to make sure that these funds are being used. And it's causing delays because of the demands on the IRS asking for some of the tax returns. It's taking a while to get the tax returns from the IRS. And so that's Catherine is saying my internet connection's unstable, so I hope I don't lose or any kind of connection or anything.
Yeah,
But
you're okay for now.
but anyhow, I just wanted to explain what's going. Okay, I just wanted to explain what's going on behind the scenes because people don't understand what we have to go through as an agency with the compliance requirements and oversight agents or oversight authorities that are asking for all this because of how making sure that the tax dollars are being used properly. So that has added to the delays. I mean, I know nobody likes those delays that we're seeing out there in that timeline, but that's the reality of what we're dealing with when you have to get stuff back from the IRS. It adds to our workload at the agency. Now, our office is able to answer, to help you to connect to where to go to get the answers. But we can answer some auxiliary type questions and everything, but we are not involved in the processing. None of the district offices around the country are. It's all through the disaster office. So believe me, we get frustrated sometimes too, just like everybody else is. And we're trying to get the answers helping people. But we're on the last legs of this with all the recovery. People are kind of frustrated because they've just gotten used to a lot of grants and now we have loans and just different things. But just bear with us. We're getting through all this and now we do have some additional documents. So if they do come back and they're just verifying your income and your revenue of the business and some different things, there might be some additional questions they come back with. And you can see you have more documentation that you're required to do for the bigger loans. So I wanted to explain that. And I think that might be a good time to answer. Can you discuss the requirement of having a tax transcript to complete the application considering the IRS's backlog? I can't explain the IRS's backlog and why it's taking, but it's a requirement again that the oversight agencies, Congress, and all the authorities that oversee and regulate our agency were required to do. I apologize, I don't have a better answer than that. It's just taking some time with some different things. And Chad, if you have any specific things to, Catherine, can you put my email address in the chat? And so everybody has it. If they have any questions, I can follow up with specific situations too. And
there were also some questions in the Q&A box. I don't know if you could see that.
Oh, okay.
Do only I have that? You might not have that. I'm not sure. The first question is, if a business applied for EIDL in 2020 and was denied because of credit score, and we reapply with upgraded credit score, will the eligibility be impacted by current changes? For example, like the specific industry codes. What is the odds of being funded the second time? And how can SBA Iowa assist with this national application process?
Well, I think I answered the second question already, that SBA Iowa District Office, I mean, we have 68 district offices around the country. our disaster office division of the SBA is actually processing the loans. We are not processing, but we are fielding questions and trying to help people connect the dots and get to the right people and answer those questions to try to move things along. Sometimes we're kind of strangled just like everybody else, that we can't get some of the answers that we want as quickly as we want to be able to help small businesses, but we're trying to bend over backwards to help in every way we can. As far as the credit score and everything, yes, can you oh, Jayden, I'm sorry, I know who this. Jayden, just email me back separately, okay? Let's have a private conversation, and I'll see what I can do to help. And this is all Jayden, okay? UCC 1 collateral, that is the filing for the bigger loans. And there is the form. It's all those forms are on the website, and I can also, if somebody can't find it, I can send you the link to it too. But there's just a form that you fill out that for the business assets that requires for bigger loans. I'm sure people have done it with conventional loans as well, and that's just with the liens on business assets. Okay, thanks, Jayden. And I'll make sure I'll follow up with you and answer specific questions too, okay? Can we go ahead to the next? Thanks, Catherine. I'm sorry to, if you guys, just so you know, I'm fully capable of advancing to if I could, but in the government, we're not allowed to use Zoom or initiate Zoom. So I have no control over the presentation, and I have to ask Catherine to help with that. So I apologize. So SBA.gov /EIDL is the website. Everything is there, all the facts, all the information, any questions on about the program and eligibility, the sample intake form and the checklist, and then to go to set up a portal. And again, if you haven't applied, then you set up a portal, because that's where you will get updates on your loans, on your loan and the processing of everything. But if you have an existing SBA loan, so or EIDL loan, say you have $100,000 and you want to get an increase of another $100,000, you would just go in and work off of that same loan in the portal. You do not apply again. So that's so critical, because we're already dealing with so many delays that are unpleasant, and you don't want to add any more time to any delays. And we can't we can't, as much as we want to in the district office, to intervene and help and to get these processed even quicker. We just don't have the ability outside of the people that are processing the loans to do that. But we can, and Catherine's putting in my email address, or she has it in there. And if everybody can, specific questions that you want to ask about your case, then please feel free to email me, and I will try my best to answer questions. I might be directing you to, because there are email addresses on there, and phone numbers to call to ask specific questions of the people that are processing the loans, or to check on the status. But certainly if there's any, one thing that we're seeing, people are going to congressional offices with some of the most basic things that they should just be contacting the SBA about. There is really no need to, if you're looking for something, they can't it's not going to get processed any quicker if you go that route. It's actually going to add more time, because then we're kind of going back and forth and we're tying up resources, trying to get answers to questions back and forth. And you're tying up not only our local office with answering congressional on some basic questions, but also to tying up the people that we want involved in getting these things resolved and processed as quickly as possible. So I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, I'm not discouraging anybody from, obviously, from contacting, but kind of use your judgment. If it's something that's truly not getting resolved and there's some real complicated issue with it, but if it's just something very basic that could be answered on the website or answered by just sending an email to somebody, they are responding, and they're responding pretty quickly. So please just take that into consideration, because we're trying our best at the agency. But I'll give you an example. In our district office, with everything at the beginning of what I was saying we were doing with the volume, and that's on top of our regular day job, all the other responsibilities we have 5 people, and then we have 2 temporary employees too for and through the end of December. So we're so swamped, even on our end. And so as much as it can be streamlined so that we can be as effective as we can for you, that is so important. I can't stress that enough. Because if you know us, you know that we're dedicated to you, that we know that we work for you, and we take our jobs very, very seriously. But we also, one of the other things too, we're trying to get people to avoid, we've also noticed that people have contacted each of us separately, because we're still working remotely, and asking us the same thing until they get the question that they like, or get the answer they like. That's just tying up our staff, and we just don't have time for it. We got to work smartly, or in a smart manner, so that we can really help our small business community. So I'm putting that out there as a little bit of a plea and a suggestion. Um, but certainly we're here to help you, to answer questions, and to get you through this. We're not everybody's going to qualify for all of these programs. I mean, we are getting the calls of people saying that, that they're obligated to, or that they're entitled to this and everything. Not everybody's situation is going to be the same. And people are saying, well, my neighbor got this and my friend got this. And, every business is different. Every application is different. So it doesn't mean just because somebody down the street got something and they are in a similar business that you're going to get the same amount or qualify in the same way. So any other questions that came in?
Yes, there was one other question. Would a rural company fit into the new criteria for underserved businesses? And if so, what size town would fit this parameter?
What do you mean? No, I mean, these program are EIDL. The EIDL program is for all small businesses and nonprofits. When I said that we're really, anything we do is just like targeted marketing and outreach. So if you're in Des Moines, if you're in a small town, rural area, it doesn't matter what size business, or what type of business or where you're located, everybody's treated the same. But we're just trying to reach out to different groups specifically. We're doing things for targeted training with veterans, with women business owners, with rural businesses, with, across the board. So underserved markets, by that, generally refers to women, service disabled, veteran, minority-owned businesses, rural. But that doesn't mean EIDL is only, these changes aren't specific to those. Just when I refer to underserved markets, we're cognizant that there's a lot of businesses, particularly that are self-employed, that that were kind of left out of, especially like the first round of PPP, for example. They tend to be self-employed, and they were, in some cases, some banks told them that they weren't eligible. And what they meant, they were eligible for the program, but how the calculations ran, they didn't really qualify for a large amount. And so when since the change of administration, since January of 2021, they changed that calculation for Schedule C applicants for the PPP program to looking at gross revenues opposed to net revenues. So that opened up the floodgates for a lot more self-employed businesses that were a lot of underserved markets, to be quite honest. A lot of women and a lot of minority-owned businesses that are predominantly self-employed. So, but anyhow, just to make sure you understand, any small businesses that meet the eligibility size standards and the other eligibility requirements is eligible for this program. It's not just for underserved markets. Now, maybe what you're talking about, there's two, Catherine, if I can, there's two other programs that are still going on, which are, if you remember in the first stages, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can still hear you.
Okay, because my computer's saying some weird things. It might just be the issues with the federal government and Zoom. But when the EIDL program first came out, there was a grant component to it that was up to $10,000. And then they had to pivot because of the amount of money they had in funding and the demand. And they changed it to $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. So that was the EIDL advance. That money ran out midway through, or like in the third quarter of 2020. So then with the new funding, the federal funding that came out that was passed in December of 2020, and implemented in 2021, that Recovery Act funding created two additional programs called the Targeted EIDL Advance and the Supplemental EIDL Advance. The Targeted EIDL Advance, there is a link on the website when you go to that sba.gov/EIDL that will give you, it's a mapping tool that you enter your address, and it will tell you if you're in a low income community. And there is a formula or calculation they use, and that if your business is identified as being in a low income community, then you can qualify for the Targeted EIDL Advance. So basically what this did is, if you didn't get if you applied for that advance in 2020 and you didn't, say you were self-employed and you only got a $1,000 opposed to the maximum of $10,000, what they did is they went back and with the Targeted EIDL Advance, if you met those criteria, you can get made whole to that $10,000 grant. But you have to be in a low income community, have more than 30% in revenue losses, and have, double check, less than 300 employees, and you got up to $10,000. If you got that Targeted EIDL Advance, then you could also be eligible for supplemental up to $5,000, but the criteria got a little bit stronger, where you had to have 10 or less employees and have more than 50% revenue loss. So those programs, Jayden, that might be what you're talking about with the underserved markets and whether rural was in there. They factored in, I don't know how they did their algorithms or the formula, but you have to put in your address and it will tell you if you qualify for that targeted EIDL advance. And that link is on the website. If that makes
Awesome.
sense.
Thank you so much, Jayne. If anybody else has questions, please feel free to put it in the chat or the Q&A box now. Otherwise, again, the email address for Jayne is in the chat, so you can feel free to reach out to her directly, or I'm also happy to make an introduction for those who need it. So yeah, feel free to reach out and get
Can I put in 2 more plugs? So
Yes.
again, December 31st is when this program ends, unless the money runs out quicker, which there was a lot of funding left. I don't know right now where we stand on the funding, but it is likely that it could run out a couple weeks before the end of December. The other thing is I am holding office hours at the Evelyn K. Davis Center, Financial Empowerment Center next Tuesday, the 19th. If anybody wants to come by and meet with me one-on-one, and that we can get into the portal or, get into the website if you need any help. Okay. The other thing is too, and Catherine, this is a shameless plug for the Immigrant Entrepreneurship Summit, the Saturday before Thanksgiving. And I think we have this confirmed.
Yep.
That we're going to set up a room where SBA and our, I got to reach out to our resource partners, but just being able to answer questions and being on site to help people with any, we're getting down to the wire with all this running out with the economic recovery funding, but we will be available to answer questions at that event, at that too, or help with, geez, I mean, we have our other programs, we're actually financing a lot of business startups right now. And SBA regular lending increased last year, despite all the economic recovery funding going on in the pandemic. So, but I just wanted to give you those options that were there, available to answer questions.
Thank you so much. And of course, thank you for mentioning the summit and being available for people. So thanks, Jayne. All right, well, we will wrap it up here. But again, thank you for coming and for participating here and for the summit. So we'll see you then. And everybody, thank you for joining in. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.